Hello everyone, welcome to the deep dive. I am Chris Pajak. That man right there is Josh Williams, the mastermind behind this show. It has been 5 weeks in the making, give or take. Josh over on his Substack has been looking into Liverpool's forwards, who they could potentially be targeting. So this isn't just a 30-minute video. There's more behind the scenes on his Substack, of course. So go over there, check out Distance Covered on Substack and get involved. Liverpool apparently in the market for a wide player. Pretty vague, Josh, to
Very
be fair,
vague, yeah.
as according to David Ornstein.
Yeah.
We've taken that as a forward player because it's much sexier than a fullback, obviously. You started off with looking at the top 7 leagues around Europe.
I learned from my mistake
Yeah.
in that sense, because when I was looking at managers, I don't know why, but
Slot,
I looked at the top 6 and they had VC's 7th, so I missed Slot, which is very, very annoying. So this time I've learned from my mistake and hopefully... But this obviously means that Evans is now going to go to Denmark or something by a player.
That's it, isn't it?
But,
he could be anywhere around the world, couldn't he? Now,
Yeah.
when you're looking at forwards, what we're trying to do here, we're trying to scout almost like Liverpool. There are some parameters, like Josh has just said there. We're looking at the top 7 leagues.
Yeah,
Right.
every player.
Liverpool will be looking at every league worldwide, every single player, to see who can fit these things. What we've done is obviously use the freely available software that we've got. The best one for that, for the most part, is FBref.
Yeah.
There are other sites that I'm sure you will have used, but we'll start with them players. And what are you looking for in a forward player? Because, you know, Ian Graham, famously to some, said, a scout or coach would say, why do we like this forward? His analytics team would respond, he takes loads of really good shots. The scout or coach would counter, yeah, but does he drive inside enough? Does he bring his teammates into play enough? Ian Graham would say, we're playing them up front. He takes loads of good quality shots. There is literally nothing else to say. All other arguments, they're second order effects compared to this, but people love to mystify and bring more and more factors into play. A use of data is just to say, this is the most important thing. We might be wrong about it. We sometimes are wrong, but you have to come up with some really good arguments against this one really important thing. That really important thing is the amount of shots that a player takes. It's, you've banged the Nunes drum for a year and a half now, is that is the most important thing. The data-led avenue would lead you to that. Is that what you are basing this on more than anything?
Pretty much. I love that quote, by the way. That's up there with my favourite quotes. Just him talking about, I mean, obviously being very, very clever as it is anyway, but talking about football, which is such a complex sport in the eyes of many, in such a simple way, saying, like, if you're playing up front, i.e. your starting spot is in the final third, you have one primary job, and it's miles away from everything else, and that primary job is score. That's literally it. And how do you score? You get shots, ideally from good areas, and that's kind of the crux. That was the starting point for looking at it, like, for a bit of context on the Europe's top 7 leagues thing. 4,000 players is about the sample that I was using, and it was only last season, to be fair. Liverpool will go back further than that and stuff, but 4,000 players, and I just started by looking at them when it comes to their ability to get good shots. Literally as simple as that, and that's where we go. We move from there, basically.
Okay, so you've got your 4,000 players. There are going to be a lot of players in there. You're going to filter by position, of course. You're going to filter by output. Is there anything else that you're looking at from those 4,000 players? Age, maybe? Yeah,
so the filters that I used it was last season, Europe's top 7 leagues. Every player is aged 26 or under. Every player last season played at least 1,350 minutes in the league, which I think is the equivalent of about 15 full games, basically. Every player on this list that you're going to see now averages a minimum of 2 shots per 90, a minimum of 0.2 non-penalty expected goals per 90, and a minimum of 1 completed dribble per 90. So that was a long list, but it's really not that complicated, that one. And should we get up first viz?
Yeah, let's get up to first viz then, forwards of output.
Right, so...
How many names are on this list, by the way?
Well, when I got the list of 4,000 players, I obviously had to get rid of everyone who is not a forward. So I got rid of all the centre-halves, all the goalkeepers, all the midfielders and that. And I've kept hold of all the players who, if they're not a forward, they're not far off. You know what I mean? So that's what you can see there, and they're the players who meet that criteria that I've just mentioned above, and they're the players who show it well. And what I like about it immediately is, for me, the best forward out there is probably Kylian Mbappe, and by some distance. And I think you see that immediately.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think anyone's surprised by that. Obviously, Liverpool can't sign Kylian Mbappe, but they can look at some of the others who are floating about in nice areas and then delve a little bit deeper. But are you surprised by none at all?
I don't really think so, to be honest with you. I'm not surprised at some of the names that I'm seeing. Obviously, Cole Palmer, I guess, would be not far off a forward. He would have been one of those where you just went, you know what, his output is that of a forward, so I'll leave him in there. Mason Greenwood might be a bit of a surprise, to be honest with you. We can probably discount him at some point for non-footballing reasons. Other than that, they're names that Liverpool have either been linked with or, you know, are good players for the most part.
Yeah, well, it's worth saying that, like, every player on that scatter plot, that's the start of the process. As in, like, obviously you see, for example, Vinicius Junior on there. What's his name? Alejandro Garnacho's on there from Man United, obviously. We're not signing them players. So this is the starting point, just to see where everyone kind of ranks and stuff like that. And then you move from there and start filtering a little bit more then. But that basically, if you're signing any forward, if he doesn't have the output in terms of shots and expected goals in the penalty box, to an extent, he is a bit not fit for purpose because he's a forward. That's literally the job. That's, you know, you can link the play as much as you want, but that's kind of the crux of what the forward's supposed to be doing, really, when you think about it. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
One of the things that I would question is, where's Núñez? Because I would have expected to see him on there. Well,
and that's another filter I should have included. Liverpool players have been removed from this. But Núñez, funnily enough,
not far off Mbappe.
I think he was above him. I think. Which is one of the main reasons why I have reinforced the fella for so long, is that he has the product in terms of the shots and all that. They're just not coming out the other end of the machine.
The outcomes aren't
yet. It's broken a little bit. So maybe he's a bad finisher, who knows? But the process at least is good. He should be scoring more. Maybe next season's the time when that'll happen. But if Núñez was on that, he'd be floating around Mbappe, yeah.
Which is wild to think, isn't it? Okay,
absolutely
so you've taken that list of players. How do you can't scout all of them? What's the next stage for you? Are you looking at how are you going to whittle that list down, basically?
So, I think from this, I started to just go through different other elements. Like, I started to remove the obvious. Like, I got rid of Garnacho, got rid of Greenwood and people like that. I got rid of some of the players who, well, we're not actually there yet, but if we get up the next viz before we get to that point. So the next viz is kind of where we got to when there was about 35 names left, I think. They are the top 25 for basically who's doing loads for his team's attack. You know, in terms of creating XG.
Yep.
Elise off the charts. Is that a surprise?
When he plays, no, probably not.
I must say, to get Elise in there, by the way, I did ever so slightly adjust the minutes criteria because he actually fell short of playing
what you'd originally said.
Yeah, he was one game. He was 90 minutes off it, so I just adjusted it slightly.
So just for anyone who's looking at this viz right now, this is the team's XG compared to the players' XG, and as a percentage, the players of the team's XG.
Exactly, yeah. So it sounds complex, but it's not that heavy.
So let's say, on a game basis, there's one XG for Crystal Palace, and Elise has averaged 50% of that XG all season long.
Actually 60, yeah.
60%?
Yeah, so 0.6 of Palace's 1 XG per match is coming from Elise, basically. So
Has he just taken over the Zaha role then?
Kind of, I suppose, yeah.
Because that's, I'm sure, exactly what he would have been doing in previous years.
Yeah, I know. And it's worth saying as well that the player at the very bottom of the 35 is Johan Bakayoko. You can't actually see him because he didn't make the list. But he's 35th, not because he's bad, but because PSV were
really
boss. So they weren't reliant on one player. Another lad who didn't make the 25 that you can see is Musiala, who again plays for Bayern Munich. They're already really good. They've got Sane over there, they've got Harry Kane over there. So that doesn't mean Musiala's bad or Bakayoko's bad. It just means maybe they're not shouldering as much of the load as Elise is for Palace. But I thought it was interesting to look at nevertheless, because some of the players who were ranking high up there, you've got Rafael, Kvaratskhelia, Pedro Neto, Gyökeres. It all feels quite right to me.
Yeah. One of the interesting things is whenever I start doing something like that and you end up down this mad like little hole of where you're going with stuff, did you do that? And it obviously didn't make your Substack, but did you then go, oh, I wonder what Núñez was at Benfica? Because I would have.
Yeah, a little bit. There was also some players who didn't make it, who absolutely would have made it based on the previous season. Like, for example, Kudus. He fell short for the XG based on West Ham, but his previous season at Ajax, he would have easily made the grade. So that's the problem with just doing, I'm only doing one season. Liverpool won't do one season. Liverpool will do careers. They'll have far more complex stuff than this. But nevertheless, it is interesting to compare like certain parameters like that. And some people have messaged me, to be fair, saying like, where would Liverpool players be on this? But I haven't shown it yet.
No, and you're not going to.
Maybe if I can be bothered, I'll do it. Maybe for
slow news week. Yeah, slow news week.
For a small fee, maybe I'll think about it.
So you're going to whittle them players down. One thing that I think, before we get into the minutes and all that type of stuff, one thing that I thought was really interesting is something that's not really talked about a lot, Josh, and that's contracts and how they impact signings.
Yeah, well, that's one of the ways in which I whittle down to like the final 15. Is looking at contracts. Like, I think generally when you see transfer analysis, it is usually like talking about the player's strengths, how bossy he is, how many goals he scored, but no one looks at the contract. And the contract, I was literally at a conference with Ian Graham when he said on the stage, players with long contracts do not move. Literally said it as simple as that. Now, it's not as true as that. Like Liverpool bought Alisson a year after he just signed for Roma. So they do sometimes, but if you want to do that, you're paying a lot more than if a player was had 2 years left on his contract or something. So I think you can just rule certain players out based on the length of their contract at their current club and the wage that they're in. And that was how I got down to like the final 15, as well as getting rid of some players who I don't think are wide players or I got rid of Gyökeres, for example.
Yeah,
from Sporting. Centre forward, yeah. Good player, brilliant. Sure we'd all be over the moon if we were linked with him, to be honest, but I don't think he fits what we're after specifically here. So, but yeah, contracts, bit like, say, for example, Elise. He's a player who showed up really well when it comes to doing loads for Crystal Palace, but he's already on over 100 grand a week at Palace, only 22 years old. And his release clause is about 60 million or something, apparently. So to get Elise, you're paying a fairly big transfer fee and making him a top earner, or not far off. Would Liverpool do that? I don't know.
I looked into it, the release clause stuff after our conversation, was it last week or the week before? So release clauses are always paid for the most part in one go.
Yeah.
You would go above the release clause to then amortise the fee over a number of years. Now, obviously, in the Premier League, you can only amortise a fee over 5 years now because of what Chelsea were doing with the 7-year contracts and stuff like that. So, for example, Liverpool, let's say there's a release clause for 50 million quid, bang, that's 50 million going in this season's PSR accounts, as simple as that. You might offer 60 to pay it over 5 years, to break that down to 12.5 years a season, which helps you with your PSR.
Yeah.
But the release clause things actually, you might think it makes it better for the club because you know how much you've got to pay. But actually in the PSR world that we're living in, it's not a great thing.
Yeah. I think it's, when it comes to the wages as well, I just don't think Liverpool ever really go big on the fee and big on the wages. They go big on one of them. And Elise, I also think another concern with Elise is just, I keep using him as an example, but I think Liverpool would be conscious of a bidding war with him. I think Chelsea are quietly looking at him City quietly looking, and probably United.
Don't want to get into another bid more with Chelsea.
No, you just don't want to get into a bid more with any of these nutcase clubs, make their own nuts, but he's definitely a really good player, but and he made the final grade and all that, but I have question marks as to whether he'll win the whole contest. Like.
Okay, so you're 15 players that you're left with.
Yeah, the 15 players that I got left with in the end, right, in terms of like, these are the players who fit the age criteria, the shots, the XG, dribbles, contract, wage, everything. Michael Olise, Marcus Edwards, Yankuba Minteh, Omar Marmoush, Kvaratskhelia, Brian Mbeumo, Johan Bakayoko.
I think you missed Rafael out there, maybe.
I'm looking at the final 12. Rafael, yeah, Anthony Gordon, Moussa Diaby, Ryan Sheikhy. I can't remember Zagrova's first name, but his surname Zagrova. Nico Williams, Pedro Neto. They're the final 15. That's just before I actually included the contracts and the wages. Because with the contracts and the wages, Leao, Diaby, and Williams come out. Williams somehow is on £200,000 a week. Seen that?
We discussed this a couple of weeks ago, do you remember?
Mad. Absolutely mad.
According to Capology.
According to Capology, yeah. Diaby is on a long contract with Villa and a big wage. That'll be a no. And Leao, similar with AC Milan. So they're three that are really good. And I would like all three.
So the final 12 players then?
Final 12. We'll stick with surnames, eh?
Yeah. Because you've only written them.
Yeah, Olise, Edwards, Minteh, Marmoush, Kvaratskhelia, Mbeumo, Bakayoko, Gordon, Sheikhy, Zagrova, Neto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some names I like in there.
But they're not, none of them are like...
There's none where I think, no way, they wouldn't be interested in
good,
that.
yeah, good. But there's also none who are like amazing. Do you know what I mean? You know when you go and sign a player and you can't wait for them to join or something.
But isn't that what Edwards is instilling back into the football club? It's you buy them before that leap.
Yeah.
You don't want to be charged 80 million quid if you can help it. Get them before that next step.
Yeah.
That's what we saw with, Mane.
Yeah,
certainly.
exactly, yeah.
That's what we saw with Salah. Have the big leap at the football club.
Yeah, but they are the players who I think are the most realistic for Liverpool to target this summer. Wide players, certain age, numbers, wage, contract, all that stuff. And just for a bit of an insight into like who plays. Did I say Musiala?
I don't think so, no. Yeah.
I think the thing with Musiala, obviously he ticks every box numbers wise, brilliant player. And he's only got 2 years left on a contract and he's earning less than £100,000 a week, amazingly. So he's made it to the final hurdle basically, but the problem is, even despite all that, Bayern Munich are not going to sell him this summer, even if he has got 2 years left on his contract. But he's an interesting one to watch anyway, isn't he? Yeah. Keep an eye on him, I think everyone will be doing that. But if we look at the final 12 here, for just minutes played, which is generally probably overlooked, the two lads at the top are of particular interest to me. It's interesting that Olise's bottom, but the season before, I think Olise started 37 out of 38 in the Premier League, which is a bit mad. But yeah, the top two, really, really good. And I know you're a fan of Gordon as well, aren't you?
Massive. I think he's absolutely brilliant. What's interesting there is on the minutes played, the top three would be three of my top four.
Yeah.
From that list of players.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I'll be honest with you right now. Anthony Gordon's my favourite on that list. I think he's absolutely fucking brilliant. He's an absolute handful every time I watch him play football. And now I've found out he's a Liverpool fan as well, like the rest of the world. It's just mad. Like, plus you've got all the stuff with Newcastle and they might have to be compliant with PSR and look to move somebody on. It feels like there's somebody talking and trying to get the interest going. He's like, hand up, like, you know what I mean? Come on, Liverpool, I'm a Liverpool fan. Come and get me. It does feel like it'd be a difficult deal to do. But I think he's an absolutely brilliant player. I think Kvaratskhelia is a brilliant player as well. Bakayoko's obviously a really interesting up-and-coming prospect. And Minteh and Olise are probably the two other names to round off my top five, to be honest with you.
Well, Gordon, just shouldn't be there, should he, really, when you think about it? Because we shouldn't be able to get him from Newcastle United. The reason he's there, 3 reasons really. Number one, they need to sell. Number two, he's got 2 years left on his contract. And number three, he's only earning 60 grand a week. So he could come to Liverpool, say Liverpool paid 80 million for him or something, which would be steep. They would save that on the wage. They wouldn't have to go mad with the wage. And Newcastle are toying with the prospect of selling someone. So I don't think it's absolutely off the table. And if it's doable, I'm like you, I think I would. He'd be either number one or joint number one with Kvaratskhelia. Kvaratskhelia is 23, I think. He's built like a vending machine. He's really fast, really direct. Got lots of output to his game as well. Always available. Champions League experience. He's got everything.
Well, should we have a look at some of these names then? Let's start. I'm going to go over to FB Ref. I'll bring up Elise to begin with.
Okay.
Right. According to FB Ref and Capology, he's on £100,000 a week. We know the release clause is around, is it around 50 million for Elise, something like that?
60, I
60, is it? Okay. So here we go. In terms of his non-penalty goals, he's top 99th percentile. But in terms of the XG, which is the important one, top 15% or 85th percentile.
I was going to say though, on that, very quickly, if we go to his shooting, he's just had a good season for goals, right? So he scored 10, but his XG was only about 5, I think.
Yeah, 5.5, so it's a plus 4.5.
Yeah, so in other words, he's had a really good season with his finishing. That might not happen again. So in other words, he could have had a bit of a purple patch there, which would make sense for Palace to now maybe cash in, because he's flying high and all that. And if he gets the same shots next season, maybe he only scores 5 as opposed to 10. Mm-hmm. But that was just a quick point on his XG and that, and overperforming it with his finishing. Maybe he is just a boss finisher. I've seen some certainly, really good finishes from him, but...
Well, when you look back at the data that's readily available, he's kind of flit around 0, hasn't he? So either this is a leap season at 21 years old, or he's going to regress back. Yeah. Because from the data that's available, admittedly small sample size in terms of the games in the 90s that have been played, minus 0.8, plus 1.6, really poor amount of games there. That would be one of the things that I'm looking at, actually, 12 games, 30 games, 40 games, 14 games.
Yeah.
That might be a little bit concerned, but he was a young player.
And another mad thing as well that I picked up on when I was looking at him, for some reason the season just gone, he's turned into a bit of a monster when it comes to shooting 4 times a game. Whereas the Elise that we've known previously has been less than half that. So I don't know if he's suddenly...
Is that a vacuum thing? Is that you are filling the space? We mentioned them before.
Yeah, it could be an authority thing. Maybe he's just growing. He's just, a bit like Bellingham from England the other night. Where they just give me the ball. Maybe he's turning into that. That could be the leap, basically, that you try to poach players when they're making that leap. So I thought that was interesting though.
Picked another player here, Brian Mbeumo, Brentford, not the sexiest of players. 24 years old now, about to turn 25, only on 45 grand a week. Rumoured fee?
I think between 35 and 50, something like that.
Left-footed as well, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of the players that we're talking about are right-footed now.
Yeah, well, the thing with Gordon and with Kvaratskhelia is I think Liverpool would probably have to sell Diaz for them to happen. With Mbeumo, I don't think that would happen. I think maybe Salah would just leave in 12 months. And you've got his left-footed replacements for the same spot already in the building, basically. But, you say he's not the sexiest there, I agree, but if you look at boxes ticked, he's just really sensible. Like, if it comes to, he's almost boring as to how much sense it makes, because he does tick loads of boxes, like the 2-year contract thing. He's not on that much wage, proven in the Premier League. Every season his output's decent, usually available often. He's fast, able to run in behind. There's not many negatives at all, is he?
Other than his name is Brian Mbeumo.
Yeah, and we can't really pronounce it, can we?
No. Is it a silent M? We just don't know. I'm sure the commentators can help us out, but we don't watch that many Brentford games. One of the interesting things about all of this is we knew what Jurgen wanted from his front three players. We're not 100%. We're not 100% sure what Slot wants. We know that Slot's got a creator there and a goal scorer on this side. Creator this side, bit of a goal scorer that side. It's kind of the other way around at Liverpool. And what does that mean for the balance of the side? So, have you based all of this without taking into consideration what Slot might be looking for? Or was there something at the back of your mind that goes, actually, you know what? I think this might suit.
I did look at him. I did look at all the players in different, you know, I looked at it for like progressive passes, who's progressing the ball, who are the dribblers in there and all that. So I did try to combine everything. But my overwhelming point that I underlined throughout was just, regardless of all that, they have to be scorers though. Like even if he wants a tricky wide player who's going to get to the byline or something, whoever it is needs to have product. That was just a kind of overwhelming thing. But in terms of what Slot might want, you know, it's hard to determine. Like obviously the way Liverpool's initial tactic work was Bobby doing that, and the inside forward naturally had the opportunity to get goals like that. Whereas if you have a 10 and Darwin Núñez on the pitch, Darwin Núñez is going to hoover up all the shots. The 10's going to stay here, and maybe the wide players can just stay wide a bit more, because it won't hurt the team as much as if Salah and Mane had stayed wide when Firmino was there. But I still think even despite all that, you still want your final third fellas to do stuff when it comes to product. Like in the past, I've seen like Lallana playing the final third for Liverpool and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and the good creative offensive players, but they don't actually do anything in terms of the product. That's what you need them product merchants in there.
I'll give you an example that might be slightly before your time, you might well remember him, but like we had a guy called Maxi Rodriguez, there's a song about him famously and stuff like that. He used to play on that left hand side. Now ordinarily I would say to you that he's not really an output merchant, but my word, could he time a run at the back stick? You know, and he might not have 4 shots a game, but when he comes into this area of the field, he was absolutely fucking lethal.
But the only thing I'd say on that is if his movement was that amazing, he would be getting 4 shots a game, because that's how it. But
it wouldn't seem like he's one of those types of players. Do you know what I mean? Because he just turns up at the back stick. There are loads of players over the course of, you know.
Well, see, that description you've just get, I would apply that to Jota.
Yeah.
I would say Jota's like that. Yeah. But Jota, for that reason, gets shots, gets expected goals, gets tap-ins and stuff like that. So, I know what you're saying, but even the players who... he would still show...
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, Josh. Like, you might be a winger like that, right?
Yeah.
Who sticks to the touchline. But if you're good, you get in there at the right time.
Yeah, I see what you mean now. Even Anthony Gordon, mate. Anthony Gordon's a good example again. He is a wide player, and he likes the flanks. He can do the track and back, beat players 1v1, crosses and stuff like that. But he's added the output to his game in the season just gone. In the season just gone, Newcastle were not very good, and he posted double figures for goals and assists. That is really impressive. And if you put him in a better team, Liverpool, does he go even better? Does he get maybe 15 goals, 15 assists, which is, you know, insane, while also doing the wide stuff. So obviously you get to a point where you just factor it all in, but while remembering the most important thing is the product.
Yeah. So we'll move on to Anthony Gordon then. I think to start off with, 23 years old, so really good age, from Liverpool. Boyhood Liverpool fan, we now know. Only on 60 grand a week, you mentioned earlier. Big one from 35 Premier League games, 11 goals and 10 assists in a struggling Newcastle side. Obviously jumps out at you. What is it that you like about him yourself?
Well, another thing that obviously isn't captured by FBref, he favours this spot here. But he played there, and there. So, unlike some of the other options, like say Elise as an example, if you're buying Elise and you can't play him there, what are you buying him for? Whereas with Gordon, he wouldn't. If he came in, he wouldn't have to play there immediately. He could play there, and you know, just depend on the match and you know whatever the game state and all that stuff. So I think on top of all that stuff that you've just pointed out, he is just really versatile as well as a forward, and he's shown that over the past 12 months.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring up on my laptop now Anthony Gordon's shot map from last season. Now, anyone who's watched the variations of these stat shows and deep dives over the course of the last 5 years, I put a lot of credence into shot maps. The closer you are to the goal, the better the XG. The further away you are, the less likely you are to score. It's as simple as that. This from a winger is really interesting. How many big shots over the course of last season were between the sticks and from good areas of the field.
Yeah.
That is absolutely fucking superb. That tells me that's a guy who wants to score goals instantly, which is kind of the whole point of this show.
Yeah, exactly. And it'd be interesting as well if you could get up Jota's for his 2 seasons at Wolves. Because Liverpool obviously signed him on the back of that when the data team was very involved in the recruitment. Jota was a player who was doing the shots like that. Might have drifted through games. He might have been a bit anonymous at times, but then out of nowhere, he'd get a shot, and it'd be a valuable one from close to goal. And he's known for being a bit of a poacher. So, have you got that up?
Yeah, his final season at Wolves was 1920, I believe. You can see there, right in the centre, and you can see he's arriving because there's nothing this on the right-hand side of the goal.
Lots of pen spot stuff.
That's arriving from the left-hand side. The season prior to that, a little bit. Oh, that's both seasons selected.
No, that's fine.
Still
that's
good.
Fine. Both seasons combined, that looks healthy. That's a lot of, good. If you're getting shots from those areas, you absolutely take it. He's obviously not much of a long shot merchant or anything like that, but again, it goes back to Graham's comments. It's about getting shots, optimal ones, and Jota was doing it. That's why Liverpool bought him, and it'll be interesting to see. I think Mbeumo's like that. I think he feels to me. I don't know about you, but he feels to me like he gets tap-ins. Just have a quick look at that myself now, but he feels like a Jota of a few years ago, to be honest, to me, as a player who drifts through games a little bit anonymously almost. But then he's rapid and he gets these tap-ins.
So from this season, it's not quite the same. Not quite getting that penetrative shot from inside the 6-yard box in quite the same way as the others. Obviously looking a little bit different compared to the others, but
it's probably a quantity thing though, because he did have an injury this season. So if we do all of the seasons in the Premier League, to be fair,
it's area more than 6-yard box, really, isn't it?
Yeah. But it is good though. It is good. It's mostly in the box, and that you can see he's kind of taking shots from them cellar locations. He's missing a fair few, don't he?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Maybe he's underperforming his XG, another little Nunes type player or something. But
shall we have a look?
Yeah, have a quick look now. It wouldn't surprise me, to be fair, because he feels like that kind of scruffy.
I'm going to have a look at Nunes' shot map, mate.
Oh,
man. Here we go.
Yeah, and Mbeumo over the past 8 seasons has basically scored as many as you'd expect. So he's not a good finisher, not a bad finisher, just bang average basically.
Okay, and for anyone interested in Darwin Nunes' shot map, taken from all the right positions, all dead central. Beautiful. But unfortunately, the outcomes aren't there, are they? Let's move on then to Kvaratskhelia. Next. Sorry, Aaron, I moved on a little bit too quick for you there, mate. Right, another right-footed player. One that everyone has got their eye on and has their eye on for probably a year and a half now, maybe. Been tearing it up, hasn't he, for Napoli and stuff. Ridiculously low wages by today's metrics. Only £29,615 per week. Go ahead. 11 goals, 6 assists in the Serie A last season. Really good in terms of shots, averaging close to 4 shots per game. And yeah, his non-penalty XG, 0.32 per game, so 1 in 3 in terms of XG. And his shooting stats, obviously he came from Ruben Kazan, there's not much data on him there, but in terms of everything else, it's looking all right, isn't it, to be honest with you? A player that you like?
Yeah, really like him, top player. And the recent agent comments are interesting as well. Have you seen them?
No, what's he say?
So his agent came out literally in the past 48 hours and said, this was on Sunday, we want to leave Napoli.
That's pretty
just as simple as that. We want to leave. Hang on, this is just on the clickbait website trying to play games with me here. we want to leave Napoli, but now we are all waiting for Euro 2024. With Conte, Napoli have big plans. I'm sure they will qualify for the Champions League next season and fight for the Scudetto, but that doesn't mean Kvaratskhelia wants to stay there.
I'll tell you what.
Our goal is to join a team playing in the Champions League.
Aye.
Because Kvaratskhelia will lose 1 year, and we are worried about that. So, heavy stuff, isn't it?
That is pretty explosive, to be honest, from a football agent. Quite surprised at it, but that's really good. And if he's showing up there, he would have to be in the conversation. Again, my big thing here is I personally would rather a left footer. I just would, because of what we've got. Because I like the form that Gakpo's been in. I really like Luis Diaz. I think the talk about selling him is way over the top, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it's, and I've said this for months now, he doesn't quite have the output that everybody wants. I get that. But it's not a given that you're going to get a player that's as good.
No,
like, it's a fucking huge risk.
Yeah.
Whereas if I've got Luis Diaz and Gakpo and Jota to play that left-hand side, I'm okay with that going into next season. The right-hand side, Salah 32 coming off his injury, 1 year left on his deal. Yeah. That feels like a much more important signing to me than another left winger. We've collected loads of left wingers.
I know. I think the thing with Kvaratskhelia is he's 4 years younger than Diaz. His output is better, and he offers all the ball carrying and the dribbling that Diaz offers. Diaz works hard defensively. I haven't watched Kvaratskhelia enough to know if I assume he does, but I couldn't really tell you. But he's very two-footed as well. That's another thing to throw in there. I don't think he has much experience of playing over here on Salah's side, but the fact he's very two-footed tells me that he potentially could. If we're attaching negatives to his game, going back to what we've just been talking about with Nunes, Jota, his shot map is interesting.
Yeah, got it up right in front of me.
Yeah, so he has a tendency to have a go from...
that can be coached.
Yeah, that can definitely be coached, yeah. If you get up, if you just take all of his seasons in Serie A, you'll see... Yeah, that'll do. Like, he obviously has a go from, like, relatively unhealthy locations where he's just attempting to score.
There's one under his C in his name. Look, you see that one under the C in his name? That's basically the halfway line at this point.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly as well, it missed.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons he shoots loads, because he's letting them fly. But you can coach that out of him, and he's still getting shots in decent occasions and that. But he is a player who I think you could get in, and you could almost be licking your lips at the prospect of, the way Salah just evolved. That, Liverpool have that intention for all of the forwards that they get in. Some of them make that step, some of them stay where they are. I think Diaz has probably stayed where he is, which is still good. But Kvaratskhelia is 23, I think. So if you get him in, every chance that by the time he turns like 25 or something, he's one of the world's best. If he's not already there.
But if you've got, this is where I find it difficult. If you've got Diaz and you've got Gakpo and you've got Jota who play on that left-hand side, what are you doing in a year's time when Salah's not there?
Well, I think with Gordon can play different spots, so I don't think it matters as much. With Kvaratskhelia, I do think to get him in, PSG would probably have to come in for Diaz.
Yeah, and that's for me, right? So you're relying on somebody coming in for your player, and an amount that you're willing to accept. You then happen to spend a large portion of that money on the next player. There isn't a guarantee that he makes that next step and becomes world class, but you've got a player that's very close to world class already. Maybe doesn't have the output that you want. Understand all that, no problem with it whatsoever. But like, it comes down to it. You've got to start planning for the future on the right hand side at some point, and that's why for me, the Kvaratskhelia one wouldn't make as much sense as the Gordon one, because Gordon, I know, can play on that right-hand side, much like Mane did before Salah was here. There are players that can play in both positions. And equally, when it comes to Kvaratskhelia and when it comes to Diaz, what's your points differential there? Because this is what these teams will look at as well.
That's a good point, yeah.
Like, and again, you sign a backup right winger, there's no points differential. I get that, because Salah's still going to play there, but you are sort of future-proofing it. Like, you might sign Kvaratskhelia now, but then your points differential goes down when Salah's not there. And you've got to sign someone. Like, at some point, we're going to have to address this position.
Yeah.
And while you're loaded on the left, surely the time is now to address the next one on the right.
Yeah, well, I was quite surprised, actually, when it got to my final list, how many of them were left-footed. Like, Elise is, Marcus Edwards is left-footed, Yankuba Minteh, Pedro Neto, Mbeumo, Bakayoko, they're all left-footed, which is quite surprising, because 75% of players in the Premier League are right-footed. But Mbeumo, I think, again, I go back to it, like, he doesn't get you as excited as Gordon or Kvaratskhelia, but
he might be the right
he might
timing.
just make the most sense, yeah. He might just be the most cost-effective, especially. Does guard against us having to find a left footer literally as Salah's walking out the door next summer, which could be tricky. He's proven in England and all that. He's only playing for Brentford, so we could probably get him. He's not exclusively for here either. He's played here plenty of times. He's played in a two with Tony. One slight worry I have with him, I know he's played here plenty in like a 3, I think, like that. But is he a wide player though for you?
He doesn't look like a
He
wide
doesn't
player.
feel like that much of a wide player to me. He feels like a Jota, like someone who wants to be about there or something. Someone who I actually think would be much more likely, and I'd be advocating a lot more than I am already, is Pedro Neto, if he was fit.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's
But he's brilliant.
Is there any consideration to, obviously we talked about like in possession and out of possession stuff over the last few weeks, and how that he tends to drop into this sort of 4-4-2 to press Arne Slot. Is there any consideration to who might be the best fit in terms of the defensive side of the game and dropping into that right wing?
If we signed Mbeumo?
Yeah, Mbeumo or any of those names there?
I think naturally Neto would be a good fit, because I think you want someone ideally there basically who, if you win the ball here now, he can do that without getting caught, opponents catching up to him. Salah can probably do that, to be fair. I think the current Salah though, I'd probably rather him there. I think, and I'd probably play Mbeumo there, Neto there and stuff. But we do tend to like those forwards. Jota was the same, Bowen was the same. Players who were playing for counter-attacking-ish teams, and they're doing a lot in terms of product, even though they've got to do loads of running up the pitch to get the teams there, because they're never usually in the final third, West Ham and that, you know what I mean? So
slow build up through the phases type of teams and stuff. So to ask you to sort of wrap up then, from that list of 12 players, if you can get the who always plays graphic up again, please, mate. From those 12 players there, who are your top 3 signings?
Well, I think the best player on the list is Musiala, but I'm going to immediately just rule him out because he plays for Bayern and we're not going to get him this summer. Gordon, Kvaratskhelia and Mbeumo, I think, are the most realistic, potentially gettable. I mean, it's still a long shot. I think Elise is brilliant, but I just don't think it'll happen. I think he will go to one of the mega rich, crazy ones. Neto just gets injured a bit too much. But yeah, that'd probably be me 3. I had to look at Bakayoko a little bit deeper, but he struck me a little bit more of a tricky. He reminded me a little bit of Alex Iwobi, almost, in that he's not going to do that and running behind defences. He's more like just playing with your ear, a bit like a Grealish, almost. And I don't think Liverpool like forwards like that. But he's good. I'm not sure he's ready. Though, he's only 21. But long-winded answers anyway. Yeah, Kvaratskhelia, Gordon, and Mbeumo.
Is that in 1, 2, 3? Kvaratskhelia number 1.
No, I'd have Gordon number 1 just, I think. Then Kvaratskhelia, then Mbeumo. But it feels mad even saying that, because 2 of them are over there and 1 of them's here. Surely you've got to have some kind of plan for exactly what is a priority in terms of the spot. Okay, for what it's worth, Gordon number 1 for me. Elise would be 2. I'd take the risk. I don't think Liverpool should, but I would in Footy Manager, and Kvaratskhelia number 3. Okay.
So they're my top 3. So there you go. It's easy. It's easy, Arne. It's easy, Michael. It's easy, Richard. Just get this man involved and he'll whittle you down. He'd love to spend the fucking night in your sheets. I'm sure. Your Excel sheets, of course. Thanks very much. Dad jokes here all week, of course, from me. That's my Josh Williams at Distance Cover. Go and check his Substack. It is world renowned now. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Ta-ra.